The blind Omega collided with the Alpha King. He smiled and whispered, "I've finally found you. A true real-life story." Part 1. The girl who counted everything. Nadia counted everything. She counted the steps from her apartment door to the elevator, 14. From the elevator to the building exit, 31. From the building exit to the corner of the street, 22. From that corner to the bus stop, 47. Give or take, depending on whether someone had left a bicycle badly parked near the lamppost, which happened more than people might think. She had been counting since she was 19 years old. That was the year the headache started. That was the year the doctors said the words retinal degeneration in the tone of voice people use when they have already decided the ending of the sentence before they open their mouths. That was the year she learned that losing your eyesight is not like a light being switched off. It is slower than that. It is crueler than that. It is a slow dimming, like someone turning a knob the wrong way, just a little at a time, for 4 years, until one morning you wake up and the window is there, and the light is there, and the world is completely, finally, and permanently gone. She was 23 when the last of it went. She was 27 now, 4 years on the other side of it, 4 years of counting. People asked her, sometimes, what she missed most. They expected her to say sunsets, or the faces of people she loved, or the color blue. She understood why they expected that. It made for a better answer. The honest answer was, she missed reading menus. She missed being able to walk into a new place and immediately know where the bathroom was. She missed being able to look at a person's face for the first time and make up a whole story about them before they opened their mouth. She still made up the stories. She had just learned to do it differently. Part 2. The Meridian Building. The firm was called Meridian Legal Associates, and it occupied the 9th floor of a building that smelled, first thing in the morning, like floor wax, and someone's terrible instant coffee, and a faint trace of the potted plant that the receptionist, Fauzia, kept overwatering. Nadia had been working there for 2 years as a transcriptionist. She was, by all accounts, very good at it. She caught things other people missed. She had learned to hold an entire spoken paragraph in her head while her fingers moved across the keyboard, and she never made the mistake that other transcriptionists made, which was to clean up what people actually said into what they meant to say. She typed what was said. Every stumble, every pause, every time a witness said 12 times in a row, because they were buying themselves time to think. She took the bus at 8:15 every morning. She got off at the corner of Ferozpur Road. She walked the 47 steps, or 49, if the bicycle was there. She took the elevator. She had done this route so many times that it had stopped being a route and had become something closer to a body memory. Her feet knew it. Her hands knew it. Her cane, a white one with a red tip that she had named in her head Iqbal, knew it. She was not the kind of person who named her cane out loud. She had named it only in her head, and only because naming it made her feel less like the cane was a medical device and more like it was a partner. Partners were easier to trust. Okay. Part 3. The morning it went wrong. It was October. The kind of October where the heat still hasn't decided whether to let go. She was 4 minutes late. She was 4 minutes late because the night before she had stayed up until 2 in the morning finishing a transcript that was due by 9 a.m., and she had slept through her first alarm and only caught the second one by muscle memory, the way you catch things in the dark when you cannot afford to miss them. 4 minutes. That was all. 4 minutes was the difference between walking through the lobby at the regular pace she always walked, unhurried and steady, and walking at the pace she was walking now, which was faster than steady and slightly less than controlled. The security guard at the front desk, Bilal, she knew his voice, he always said good morning and meant it, was not at his desk when she came in. She heard him on the other side of the lobby, on his phone, something about a schedule, and his voice had the tight quality of someone trying not to shout in public. The revolving door was being held open. She could feel the October air coming in from outside, which meant someone had propped it. She walked through the open section instead, and walked directly into a wall. The wall was warm. The wall was solid. The wall did not move. She bounced off it, there is no better word, and her cane swung sideways across the marble floor, and her bag went forward and hit her in the ribs, and her hands went out looking for something to hold on to, and found the front of a jacket, 2 fistfuls of fabric, and her bag hit the floor, and everything in it scattered. Her pens went first. Oh no. Oh no, 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 my pens. This is what her brain did when it was overwhelmed. It did not spiral into the overwhelm. It sidestepped. It picked the smallest, most manageable thing in the immediate disaster, and it fixated there. Right now, that thing was her pens. Specifically, the 3-micron 05 fine-tip black pens she had ordered from an import shop, because she liked the way the ink felt going through her fingers when she pressed down on the transcription paper, the way the nib gave slightly at the tip instead of scratching. And she had had to order them twice, because the first order had gotten lost, and she had exactly 3 left, and they were currently rolling across marble, somewhere in the lobby of the Meridian building, gone forever, probably, lost to the underside of the security desk, lost to the gap between the door frame and the floor mat. Her pens. Her beautiful, expensive, imported, irreplaceable pens. "Don't move," said the wall. It had a voice, low, not unkind, very certain. She stood there, holding its jacket. She heard it crouch, knee to marble, the soft sound of it, and then the small percussion of pens being picked up one by one. She counted 3, possibly 4. Her grip on the jacket did not loosen, because her hands had not yet gotten the message from her brain that this was a person and not architecture. The wall stood back up. She felt the shift in air pressure. "Are you hurt?" His voice, up close, was the kind of voice that belonged to someone who had made decisions all his life and was not anxious about them. Steady, with a kind of depth to it that made it feel like the voice was coming from slightly lower than where his mouth actually was. She opened her mouth to say, "I'm fine, I'm sorry, I have to go." His hand touched her elbow. Just there, just to steady her. She was thrown back 6 years. "Not here, not today, we are not doing this." She stepped back, found Iqbal, straightened, pulled her bag strap up onto her shoulder with the particular efficiency of someone who does everything with particular efficiency, because efficiency is what you have when you cannot rely on the other things. "I'm fine," she said. She walked to the elevator. She pressed the button. She got in. The doors closed. She stood in the elevator with her hand against the wall and her pens back in her bag. She counted them later, at her desk. All 4 were there. He had found all 4, and she breathed the way her therapist had taught her. The 4 count in, the 6 count out, the one where your body stops arguing with itself long enough to let you function. The anger had come. It always came when she needed it. Sweet and practiced and familiar, the most reliable tool she owned. She held it close on the elevator ride up. She did not think about the voice. She would not think about the voice. Art 4. The man on the 14th floor. His name was Zion Khalid. He was 32 years old. He ran an asset management firm that occupied most of the 14th floor of the Meridian building, and he had a reputation in certain business circles for being, as one financial column had put it, architecturally calm. He had read that phrase and set the newspaper down and thought that was probably the most accurate thing anyone had ever written about him, and also that it was not entirely a compliment, and also that he did not particularly mind. He was not a man who minded things easily. He had grown up the second son of a family that had built its way up from almost nothing, and the second son in that kind of family learns very early that the world does not particularly arrange itself around your preferences. You arrange yourself. You stay steady. You wait. He had been waiting, in one way or another, for a very long time. He could not have told you what he was waiting for. He would not have known how to answer that question. But it was there. The sense of a space that had not been filled, the sense of a door he had not yet walked through. He had walked into the Meridian building that morning at 8:46, which was 4 minutes later than usual because he had taken a call in the car that ran long. He had been standing just inside the lobby, and then she had walked into him. He had not moved. He did not move quickly in any direction and never had. He had simply stood there while this happened. A woman with a white cane came through the open door section at full speed and walked into his chest and grabbed his jacket, and her bag hit the floor and everything scattered, and she said, in a voice that was impressively controlled for someone who had just collided with a stranger, "Oh no, my pens." He had looked at her for a moment, and then he had crouched on marble in a wool suit and collected her pens one by one. He had found 4. A type he didn't recognize, with writing on the cap he also didn't recognize. Japanese characters, it looked like. He had put them back in her bag, careful not to touch her hands. He had stood up. He had asked if she was hurt. His hand had gone to her elbow, a steadying instinct, nothing more, and she had stepped back like he'd said something. She had said, with enormous precision, "I'm fine." And then she had gone to the elevator with her cane and her bag and her pens and her spine perfectly straight, and the elevator had taken her away, and he had stood in the lobby. In his hand was one pen, a 5th one. It had rolled under the edge of the security desk, and he had found it after she was already gone. He stood there holding it. His assistant Aroha, who had worked for him for 3 years and who had an extremely accurate internal meter for when something unusual was happening, called him at 9:15 and asked why he hadn't come up yet. "I'm coming," he said. He went up. He put the pen on his desk. He looked at the writing on the cap for a long time, and then he looked it up, and it told him the name of the brand and the import shop and the fact that the shop was small and specialty and the kind of place only someone very particular about their pens would know about. He didn't know why he needed to know that. He needed to know it. Part 5. The 3 weeks. She did not think about him. This was her consistent, firm, entirely not true position for the next 3 weeks. What she actually did during those 3 weeks was notice things. She noticed the specific timbre of his voice, the way it sat lower in the chest, the way it came without apology. She noticed that when he had crouched to pick up her pens, his breathing had been entirely even, which meant he was not alarmed or rushed or performing a kindness. He had just done it, the way you do a thing that is simply what is done. She noticed that his hand on her elbow had been very still, not gripping, just there. She had not been touched without warning since Karachi, since the accident, since she had walked away from the hospital with a cane and a new definition of the word trust. She closed that door. She was good at closing doors. She had entire wings of herself that were closed, and she knew exactly where they were, and she did not go near them. This was not avoidance, she had explained to her therapist. This was management. There was a difference. Her therapist, Dr. Rania, had looked at her over her glasses for a very long time when she said that, and then had simply written something down. She thought about his voice on the bus. She thought about it during transcription, occasionally, in the way that a radio station comes in and out through static. Not constant, but there. She thought about the pens. She thought about the fact that someone had crouched in wool in a lobby to collect pens for a stranger and had not said anything about it after. She thought about the word architecturally. She had not thought that word before. She did not know where it had come from. It had just arrived, applied to a man she had held on to for approximately 4 seconds in a lobby. She was not going to do anything with any of this. She said this to herself on day 3, and on day 9, and on day 17. The 47 steps from the corner to the Meridian Building's front door began to feel slightly different. She noticed that she noticed the lobby more, which was not a thing a person who was not thinking about someone did. Part 6. The elevator. It was the elevator, not an accident. She didn't believe in accidents anymore, not after the thing in Karachi, which had also been called an accident by everyone involved. She believed in collisions. Collisions were different. Collisions had 2 forces involved. Accidents were just one thing failing. Collisions were 2 things meeting at the wrong place or the right place, depending on what happened next. She was in the elevator at 8:51 on a Tuesday, and the doors were about to close, and someone got in. The air in the elevator changed. Not dramatically, not in the way it changes in stories, electric and obvious. It just had a quality, a specific weight. Like the elevator had been neutral before and now had an opinion. She stared forward. She was good at staring forward. 2 floors passed. 3. He said nothing. He was not the kind of man who filled silences. 4 floors. I have your pen. She turned her head in his direction. Her sunglasses were on, the dark ones she wore indoors, because she found it easier, because they gave her a small wall behind which to manage her face. Her face, she had been told, was expressive in a way she couldn't always control, and she had learned to use the glasses as a kind of filter. She said, "Which one?" Not a question. A test. Micron. Fine tip. Black. A pause. I looked it up. You ordered them from an import shop. She was a person who was not easily unsettled. She had built herself into that person deliberately, the way you build a table, joint by joint, surface by surface. She had been told she was impossible to read. She filed this information. He had held on to the pen. He had looked up the ink on the cap. He had found the import shop. He had done this quietly, without telling her, for 3 weeks. She said, "How did you know it was Japanese?" "The characters. I had someone translate the label." Sabir. The elevator reached 9. She put her hand out. He placed the pen into her palm. She felt his fingers not touching hers, the precision of the not touching, which was more deliberate than touching would have been. She stepped out. The doors closed. She stood in the hallway of the 9th floor with the pen in her hand and her bag on her shoulder, and the October morning continuing to be the October morning around her, perfectly indifferent to what had just happened. Oh no. Oh, absolutely not. She put the pen in her bag. She walked to her desk. She sat down. She put her headphones on. She pressed play on the audio file she was supposed to transcribe. She stared at nothing in the direction of the wall for approximately 4 minutes before she started.
Part 7. Coffee.
The coffee cart was in the lobby every morning between 9:30 and 11. A man named Hamid ran it. He knew her order: medium, no sugar, a little extra hot, and he always called out when she was close enough to hear. She usually went at 9:40. He went at 10. She knew this because she had, without meaning to, started noticing the sounds of the lobby when she came down for coffee. The elevator from the upper floors, the direction of footsteps, the particular weight of someone's tread. She had not told herself she was doing this. She had just noticed, at some point, that she was. On the Thursday of the 3rd week, she came down at 9:40 and he was already there. She nearly walked past him. She would have walked past him, she told herself later. She would have walked directly to Hamid and gotten her coffee and gone back upstairs. She was not the kind of person who looked for people in lobbies. He said her name. Nadia. Just that. One word, like he was checking whether it was the right one. She stopped. She faced in his direction. He was closer than she expected, closer than the elevator, closer than the lobby collision, and she became aware of the particular stillness of him, the way the air near him was calm, in the way the air near solid things is calm, no turbulence, no agitation. "How do you know my name?" "Building directory. 9th floor. V for Vasquez." She considered this. It was technically public information. It was not the same as following her. She made this distinction clearly in her head. "You looked me up." He didn't deny it. "I've been looking for you," he said, "for a long time. I didn't know that until you walked into me." She stood there. This was, objectively, an unusual sentence. She was a person who processed language for a living, and she knew when a sentence was carrying more than its surface, and this sentence was carrying its own weight, and someone else's weight, and possibly the weight of a whole set of rooms she had not been in yet. She should say something careful, something that kept the distance she had. He moved. She tracked him by warmth now, by the displacement of air, and he was close, not close like a threat, close like a person who had decided to stop standing on the opposite side of a room, and she felt him say it, quietly, almost to himself, almost like a prayer or a conclusion. "I've finally found you." The lobby was loud around them. Bilal at his desk, Hamid and his coffee cart, someone's heels on the marble, the October air at the door. She stood with her cane and her bag and her 4 pens and the one he had returned to her, and she felt something she did not have an immediate word for, which was unusual because she always had words. Not fear, not the thing in Karachi, not the old familiar anger, something that she had kept a room for in the back of the house of herself, a room she had never opened but had never, despite everything, filled in with concrete. She did not smile. She did not walk away. Part 8. The Slow Things. What happened after that was not a movie. She wanted to be clear about that when she told the story later, first to her sister Yumna, and then to Fauzia at the office, and then once, briefly, to Dr. Rania, who made a sound that was not quite a word but was clearly satisfied. What happened after that was slow. Slower than slow. It was the kind of slow that people who have been hurt learn to move at, because they know that fast is how you miss the thing that will later, from a distance, look like a warning. It started with coffee. He had coffee with her in the lobby, standing at the cart. Hamid made them both their orders, and did not comment on the fact that this was new, because Hamid was a professional in all the ways that mattered. They stood there for 11 minutes. She timed it, not on purpose, just by counting. He told her his name. She already knew it. She had asked Fauzia, 3 days earlier, casual as anything, just asking, no reason. But she let him tell her. Zayn. 3 syllables. A name you could say without making a face. He told her what he did. She told him what she did. He said, with a sincerity that was so undecorated it caught her off guard. That transcription seemed like it required a very precise kind of mind. She said it did. She went back upstairs. She transcribed 4 hours of audio that day and made exactly 0 errors, which was her standard, but she usually had to focus harder for it, and today it came easily, which she chose not to examine too closely. Part 9. What he saw. This is the part Nadia did not know for a while. The part she had to piece together later, from things he said and things Aroha told her, and one thing Bilal mentioned once, casually, while she was waiting for the elevator. What Zayn had seen, from his side of the lobby on the morning of the collision, was this: a woman moving through a crowded lobby with the absolute certainty of someone who knew exactly where she was going, not hesitant, not careful in the apologetic way. Certain. Her cane tapped a rhythm, and her head was up, and she walked with the specific confidence of a person who had learned to carry their body through a world that was not built for them and had decided to carry it well. She had hit him like she meant it. He had looked at her hands on his jacket, white-knuckled, not loose, holding on, and he had thought, she is not afraid, she is calibrating. There is a difference, and he had spent enough time around enough different kinds of people to know it. He had crouched to find her pens because it was the obvious thing to do. He did not think about it. He had crouched and counted them and put them in her bag and stood up, and when he asked if she was hurt, and she said, "I'm fine," in that particular, precise, end-of-sentence way, he had thought, she has said that before, many times. She has practiced at it. He recognized the practice. He had his own practiced sentences, his own things he said that closed conversations before they opened certain doors. He had watched her walk to the elevator, and he had stood in the lobby and felt, for the first time in a very long time, the particular sensation of a space opening up where there had not been one before. He did not act on it immediately. He was not an impulsive man. He went upstairs. He worked. He held on to the pen. But something had shifted in him, quietly, the way things shift when they are real, not announced, not dramatic, just different from how they were before. Part 10. The Real Conversation. It was not in the lobby. The lobby was where they started, but the real conversation happened 3 weeks after the coffee, on a Wednesday, when she came down for her afternoon coffee and he was already there, and Hamid had somehow already made her order, which meant Hamid knew something she had not told Hamid. She sat down in one of the lobby chairs. He sat in the one across from her. There was a low table between them. She said, "I should tell you something." He waited. "I lost my sight at 23. I haven't always been this way, and I am this way now, and that's the whole of it. I don't need it treated as a problem or a thing to get past, or a detail that changes what I am. It's just what's true." She said it the way she said everything, clean and direct, and without looking for a response. He said, "Okay." One word, present tense. Not "I understand," not "that must have been so hard," Not the words people used when they were processing their own discomfort and calling it empathy. Just, okay. She sat with that for a moment. He said, I should tell you something too. She waited. I'm not good at people. I'm good at work and I'm good at decisions, and I am told regularly that I am difficult to know. I don't know if that changes. I don't know how to promise that it changes. She thought about this. I'm not easy either, she said. He didn't say anything. She felt him, not reaching, not pushing, just present, the way a wall is present, stable and undemanding. She thought about the thing he had said in the lobby, the impossible sentence. She said, What did you mean? That day, what you said. He was quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of someone stalling, the quiet of someone selecting words the way you select tools. I have spent my whole adult life with the feeling of something missing, he said. Not a thing I could name. I tried to name it. I thought it was the right job or the right city or the right version of being settled. And then you walked into me in the lobby and I thought, that is what I was waiting for. Not you specifically, but whatever you are, whatever this is. The door opened and I recognized it. The lobby went on around them. Hamid was serving someone else. The elevator came and went. She did not say anything for a long time. She had built the house of herself very carefully, joint by joint, room by room. She had closed the doors she needed to close, and she had lived in the open rooms, and she had called that enough, because it was enough, and she was not a person who needed what she didn't have. But there was that one room, in the back, that she had never filled in. She said, I'm not promising anything. I know, he said. I'm not asking for a promise. I'm asking for coffee. She laughed. It came out of nowhere, the laugh, which was also how laughter usually worked. It sounded, in the lobby of the Meridian building on a Wednesday afternoon, like a door opening. Part 11. What came after she would tell the story to her sister Yumna on a video call, which for Nadia was just a regular call because the video was for Yumna's benefit. She would tell it the way she told most stories, lean and direct, and with the unnecessary pieces already cut. She would say, I walked into a man in the lobby and he picked up my pens, and 3 weeks later he said he had been looking for me his whole life, and I thought he was possibly unhinged. And then nothing, and then coffee, and then real conversation, and then more coffee, and then one day it was a year later. Yumna would say, Is he good to you? And Nadia would sit with that for a moment, the way she sat with things she needed to actually answer, rather than quickly answer, and she would say, He is still. He is there. He doesn't fix things or explain things or decide what I need before he asks. He sits across the table and he is just present, like a wall that catches you instead of stopping you. Yumna would be quiet for a moment. Then she would say, That's the best thing I've ever heard. Part 12. What he would say, he gave one interview. Not to a paper, to a podcast that a colleague ran, a business one. And the host had heard the story secondhand and asked about it sideways, through a question about intuition. Zayn had thought about whether to answer, and then answered. He said, I was standing in a lobby, and a woman walked into me and picked herself back up with more dignity than most people manage on their best day. And I thought, I want to know that person. Not know about her, know her. And I understood, in that moment, that there is a difference, and that I had been settling for the other kind my whole life. The host had asked, And did you get to know her? He had said, I am. It is ongoing. I expect it to take a very long time. He had said this like it was the most welcome thing he had ever been offered, like a man who had waited a long time and was not even slightly, in a hurry anymore. Part 13. The thing she counted on. The day she finally let herself tell Dr. Rania the full story. Not the condensed version, not the practical summary. She started, as she always started things, with the numbers. 14 steps from her apartment to the elevator. 31 from the elevator to the building exit. 22 from the exit to the corner. 47 from the corner to the Meridian building. And then she said, There is one more number. Dr. Rania waited. 4. That's how many pens were in my bag when I left the lobby that morning. He found all 4. I counted them twice at my desk. And the fifth one? He kept it for 3 weeks. And then he gave it back. And then Nadia said something she had not planned to say, something that came up the way true things come up, without announcement. I think that was the moment. Not the collision, not the lobby, not even the coffee. It was the way he gave the pen back, not touching my fingers, careful as anything, like he already understood, before I had told him anything, that careful was what was needed, that careful was what I was worth. She paused. And the room that she had never filled in, the one in the back of the house of herself, was open. Not flung wide, not loud about it, just open, the way real things open, quietly and all at once. Epilogue. People who heard the story later, and it did get told, quietly, in the way good stories move through the people who need them, always asked the same question. They asked, "Did you know, when you collided with him, that something was different?" She always thought about this honestly before she answered. She said, "I knew he was still. I knew he found my pens. I knew his hand on my elbow was careful." She said, "I did not know what any of that meant. I just filed it." And then, after a moment, she said the other thing. "I think sometimes a person is the answer to a question you didn't know you were asking, and you don't recognize it while it's happening because you're too busy being you. Being the version of you that has been managing and counting and keeping the rooms closed. And then one day you're in a lobby holding someone's jacket, and your pens are all over the floor, and the most important thing in the world is whether they're all there. And they are. They all are. And that is where it begins. End.